Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, I'm Joanne Victoria, here with you today to another amazing episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Our guest today is Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep wrote a great book called Superfans, How to Create Unwavering Customer Loyalty. And it can be purchased at superfansbook.com and probably at his website, which he will talk to you about later. What Purdeep is going to be talking to us about today is help people mastering themselves so they can make better decisions and take more effective action, which we all want is something that's more effective, so that people can live a more congruent, joyful, fulfilled, and productive life. Purdeep, welcome to the show.
Hi, Joanne. Thanks for having me on the show here.
I am very grateful that you are here because you are the first person so far to talk to men primarily, and I think that is really vital. So why don't you tell our audience how you got to this place of dealing with men and in their jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. So where do I start? So before I had my own company, I was working as an executive for a multi-billion-dollar organization. I was doing very well, but I was faced with some personal challenges in terms of fulfillment. My relationship was challenged, and I just wasn't feeling fulfilled and happy in life. I was doing all the things that society said that I should be doing in terms of having a very successful career, making the money, having the lifestyle. I had almost, the perfect family. I had a beautiful, beautiful wife, young kids, but I just wasn't happy. And it wasn't until I walked into work one day and I literally just quit that I realized what I had to do in life, which was really help other people find their path. It just so happened that as an executive, I was also coaching individuals on the side. I've been a personal trainer since I was 17 years old, so helping people has always been a part of my passion. And as I started to really focus on entrepreneurs and helping them grow their business, so when I talk about entrepreneurs, I really mean anybody that owns a business, both men and women. I soon realized that it wasn't the business strategies and tactics that were holding them back in life. It was everything but that. It was really their internal, what I call alignment when it comes to their mindset, their emotional intelligence, how they deal with situations, how they look at the world and their business through their own eyes, the stories that they tell themselves, and really aligning themselves to be the person that they need to be in order to be successful in business and in life. So 80% of the work that I was doing was really on working on them versus working on their business, because I could give two people the exact same strategies and tactics, and one will knock it out of the park and the other one will still be stuck, and it all comes back to them. And it just so happens that as I was going through my journey in my own business here, that I realized that there was a very specific need for men, because there are a lot of resources out there for women in terms of help groups, programs, but very little specifically for men. And so I just so happened to kind of move in that direction, and men would gravitate towards me for advice in their business, and I just started to help them. And it's also a personal passion of mine, because in society today, men are not only facing the challenges that they have as a father, as a husband, as an entrepreneur, but they're also faced with an additional challenge, whereas now it is almost a negative thing to be masculine. There is almost an attack on masculinity today. You've probably heard the term toxic masculinity is one of them, where a lot of men don't feel like they can be men, that they can't express themselves in the way that they need to feel authentic. And that's impacting not only their performance in business, it's impacting how they're living their lives as a husband and as a father. So it's been a personal passion of mine to help men. I lost my father last year to a sudden heart attack. And I've also seen my father, who was an entrepreneur, struggle throughout his life. He was challenged with alcohol abuse. He was an amazing man, a very loving person, taught me so much about life. and really set me on the path that I am today. And I really looked at his life and the lessons he taught me and said, wow, there's so much here that I can help other men with, which has really led me to where I am today. I've had the fortune of writing a couple of books, working with some very successful business owners around the globe in many different industries and with industry leaders. And I'm absolutely loving it.
Well, from your lips, because I don't understand, truthfully, this toxic, whatever that is, toxic masculinity. If you're talking about idiots are everywhere. But I think men should be men, and they are different from women, and they should not be 100% soft. I wouldn't want to be in a relationship personally with a man who was trying to be a woman, who was trying to downtone his masculinity, because that's not really what women want. So I think this toxic masculinity crap is just crap. I'm sure, with all that's been in the newspapers and the TV and blah, blah, blah for the past couple of years, there were people out there who were temporarily or long-term evil. That's the way I'll label them. They did bad things to women because they thought they could get away with it. Well, hopefully that is changing.
Yes.
And I think men are strong, men are different than women, and they need to be who they are. And I think they have forgotten that. And I'm glad you're there helping them.
Yes, absolutely. This is a core part, and it's very interesting. My wife and I actually went through this challenge ourselves because my wife was raised from a different perspective. She was raised by two parents that had separated, that her mother had always taught her, you don't need a man, you need to be independent, you need to be strong yourself. So it actually forced her into being more of a masculine role, which was very interesting. So both, women and men are being challenged on both sides here. And when you look at the dynamics of not only relationships, but as people, as individuals, what women go through or what men go through are very different, what I call life cycles. And the more aligned you are with yourself internally, the more successful, the more fulfilled, the more happy you will be, not only in your own life, but in your relationship and raising healthy and happier children. So I second that. I truly believe it's not toxic masculinity, it's toxic stupidity. So I think we're absolutely on the same page there.
Well, I'm looking at and thinking here, and I'm trying to come up with the right question for you so we can move this thing forward, especially about men. When you say, for example, your wife was taught that she didn't need a man, and that's always comes from people who are angry about men, obviously, and that's fine. Those things happened. How did you think, or how did she think that she was masculine because before she met you, she didn't have a man? Because I think because I think that's what one part of the issue is, that if you don't have a man in your life currently or ongoing, people criticize you. Yeah. If you do have a man in your life, he has to have certain criteria, whatever that means, to that individual person who's judging and criticizing you. And how does a woman act like a man?
Yeah, so it's not really, when we talk about acting like a man, there's both a psychology perspective behind this and also what I call an energy state perspective. Both men and women have both a form of masculine and feminine energy in them. Now, when a woman is out of her natural feminine energy, that's when she goes into the masculine, and that doesn't feel natural for her. So for my wife, if you've ever met her, if she's ever in a masculine state, that's not a natural state for her, but she was being pushed into this masculine state to fit into what her mother thought that she needed to be. And what that also did in our relationship was shift the focus, because then it also pushed me more into a feminine state, which was, okay, maybe I need to be a little bit more understanding. Maybe I need to, understand where she's coming from a little bit. But I can tell you that caused more problems in our relationship. The minute that I really turned around and actually said, okay, no, I'm going to be in my masculine state. A lot of this is not appropriate, what's happening in our relationship. And in some way, shape, or form, you can call it put my foot down. That's when things started to change in our relationship. So that allowed her to be more in her natural feminine state, which she was so much more alive, more, I would say, herself, and she can tell you this herself, is that it allowed her to be a lot more free. She didn't have to be in control all the time. She felt safer knowing that I was more in my masculine state, that she didn't have to make all the decisions. So all of this stuff kind of plays a big role in relationships. And that, to sum it up, that's the main component. But men and women also have anatomically different ways of thinking. Our brains are different from a physiology and neuroscience perspective. So we can't put each other in a certain box and say, you need to be like this or you need to be like that. Everybody is different. And even within being a man or being a woman, everybody has a different degree of both masculine and feminine energy. So you just, the bottom line is really you have to feel authentic to yourself. What feels natural to you?
I totally agree, and I'm glad you're doing what you're doing because this is really important, especially as relates to men. I hate to see situations where men are emasculated, either by themselves or trying to fit into the model that's being presented to them today in 2019. I'm not happy with it. I prefer men to be men, if that makes any sense.
Yes,
but,
absolutely.
They have a place to be, because if they're not being men, I don't want to be in a relationship with them, because that means that I have to be the man.
Exactly.
In any relationship, years ago, somebody said it all comes down to who's going to take out the garbage. So
Smart.
The bottom line of the difference between men and women or any kind of interpersonal relationship, who takes out the garbage is all that really matters. But it's it takes the load off when you say something like that. So
yes.
How do you help people? Because we have an audience who needs to know.
Oh, yeah. So absolutely. So basically, as I mentioned before, I've studied neuroscience and performance psychology and mindfulness over decades here. And I really took a look at the key components and really studied not only some of the best entrepreneurs, but some of the happiest people out there, and said, okay, what really makes a person happy? What makes a person fulfilled? What makes a person a high performer? And I took those components and really put them into what I call a checklist or a formula, which is the winner's formula. And there's three main areas that a person really needs to focus on. And the first one is really their inner energy, because people say that time is the most important resource that you have as a human being. It's not time. It's really energy, because you can have all the time in the world, but if you don't have the energy to really be productive or successful or happy, it's not worth it. So energy is the most important thing that you need to manage. And that comes with a few things. So I'll just give you a quick rundown. In today's society, we are such a fast-paced society that no one is really living in the moment these days. Everybody is thinking about the future, or they're thinking about the past. If you take a look at the quantum physics behind this, there is no such thing as the future or the past. They do not exist. The only place they exist is in our mind. And what do most people do? They spend anywhere from 75 to 90% of their time and their energy thinking about the future and thinking about the past. And what happens as a result? It takes away from your energy, your power, in terms of being able to have the impact in the moment. Because the only time that you have energy, and here's the analogy I use, is if I were to ask you, can you hit a baseball tomorrow, or can you hit a baseball yesterday? The answer is no, you can't. You can't even hit a baseball this afternoon. The only time you can hit a baseball is in the moment, this second. Mm-hmm. And so when people realize that, it's almost like an aha moment. Like, you can think about the future, you can strategize about the future, you can reminisce about the past. But if you're constantly thinking about the future and the past, you're taking away energy from the present moment. And most people need to understand that your brain actually consumes energy. It consumes about 20% of your daily calories. So think about this. If it's consuming 20% of your daily calories, but 80% of your thought is in the future or the past, how much energy do you actually have for the present moment? So helping people focus on the present moment is a key component, but also the focus. Because we talk a lot about multitasking and getting a lot of things done here. But every time you actually shift your focus, you think about multiple things. And the analogy I use for this is most people are living like an octopus. Their tentacles are in like 15 different places. And every time you do that, you actually dilute your energy. So having a singular focus is very important. If you're working on a task, focus on that task. Because every time you shift tasks, it actually takes you 8 times longer to get refocused. So the more effective you can be from that perspective, the more energy you have. And then we also talk about the internal energy of masculine versus feminine energy. If you can align your internal energy from which side to use, because as I mentioned before, you have both masculine, you have both feminine, then you actually are more effective. I see this a lot. We talked about in relationships, but in a working environment, if you're a manager or you're a leader or you're a CEO or a business owner, you have to understand that masculine energy comes into play in certain things. It's very task driven. It's very goal oriented. It's very driven. So you give it a target, that's what it goes for. And so you need to do that to get stuff done. But if you're focused on creating relationships, touching base with your staff, trying to be empathetic, then you need to use more of your feminine energy. So balancing the two is actually very important. Now, there's another component here as well, which we talk about mastering your mind. Because most people, on average, have anywhere from 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And about 47% of the time, those thoughts are actually stray thoughts. They're actually thoughts that you don't even have a direct focus on. You just, you might be working on something, and all of a sudden you start thinking about, oh, what do I got to do when I get home? Or I wonder what my kids are doing. Or did I feed the dog? And so your thoughts are pulled in all these different directions. And so you have to be able to bring those thoughts back and focus on what's at hand. And so there's other things as well when it comes to mastering your mind as well. The most important thing, and if you take anything out of this conversation, it's this point right here, is that your mind is a goal-oriented organ. And so you have to give it a target. And if you don't give it a target, it will create its own target. And the most important target you can give your mind is who you are. What is your identity? Because most people have not really identified who they are as a person. So if I ask someone, who are you? Can you tell me in 3 words? Most people can't. So having a clear identity is very important. So for example, mine is I'm a visionary, I'm a leader, and a driver. Those are the 3 things that I repeat to my brain every single day. And my brain makes decisions based on that identity. And so what happens is if you don't have an identity for yourself, your brain will create it. Some people's brains will tell them, hey, you're a lazy person. Or, hey, you don't deserve this. Or, hey, you screwed up in the past. You're a person that screws up all the time. And so your brain will actually create an identity for you. So you need to take control of that and actually do that. And some people say, well, does that actually work? Yes, it absolutely works. It's been proven by psychology. You have to give yourself an identity. And that's an easy way for you to actually start shifting and actually making better decisions. Here's a common sense thing. If you think that you make bad decisions, if that's the identity that you've given yourself, you will continue to make bad decisions because you don't have that confidence, you don't have that clarity. That's how the mind works. And there's other things in there as well that we can talk about. So sorry, I'm going to keep rambling here unless you stop me because there's so much I can talk about.
This is all very interesting information, and I have written about some of this myself because I think that people just don't understand. They've never been taught, who teaches us when we're young, that the brain makes its own decisions, usually from about the age of 3 months. They have expectations on completion of situations that occur in their life. A little 3-month-old baby is going to see somebody bouncing a ball, and they're going to wait for the next time for the bouncing ball. And if the bouncing ball goes somewhere else, they're disturbed. It's in their mind as something different, that the ball does not bounce. My mommy didn't catch the ball.
Exactly.
So these decisions are made by everybody every day, and I find that these are the most important things that people need to hear. So I wasn't going to interrupt you when you were on this roll that I am in alignment with. So.
No, absolutely. And that comes to the next thing, which you talked about, which are the filters. Every person, as you develop, the way your brain develops, up until the time you're 8 years old, the part of your brain, the hippocampus and the amygdala, which are 2 very important parts of your brain, actually start taking in information around you and actually start creating your filters, how you view the world. So think of them as lenses, as you might have 1,000 different lenses that you see the world through, that you see different perspectives through, even facts through. So two people can have completely different filters. And here's the most important thing, is that the majority of those filters are created up until the time you're 8 years old. So you are making decisions today, exactly what you said, Joanne, based on your thinking and feeling as an 8-year-old. So most people
That's frightening.
It's very frightening. But it's also very enlightening, because if you can understand this, you can actually reprogram your mind and actually bring yourself up to date. It's like reprogramming a computer. You need to keep their software up to date. And that same thing goes for your mind. So if you can understand that, and you can say, and this is, I have to do it all the time too. If I look at something, if I look at a certain situation, I have to ask myself and say, Purdeep, what filter am I looking at this through? Is it still relevant? Is it something that I created when I was a child, or is it something that I created recently? And is it still working for me? Is it empowering me, or is it disempowering me? Those are the questions you have to ask yourself. And then we also get
more people have to ask themselves these questions. I don't think they even know that these questions exist. And they just wander from place to place, relationship to relationship, job to job. But if they're leading a company or they're starting a company, they need to expand their thinking processes and learn more how to be who they truly are. You know, I just think we're all servants and we all have ministries. That's why we're on this earth. So, you know, this is your ministry. You're bringing people into your fold and helping them think clearer. You know, clarity and focus to me are the most important things. So anyway,
Absolutely.
So as we're getting close to the end of our conversation, at least for today, until you have another book that comes out, tell our audience what they can do now or soon to help themselves. What is the recipe for success that you can give our listeners today?
Yeah, the most important thing that you can do is actually work backwards. And when I say work backwards, this is what I mean. Think of how you want your life to be, truly, whether it's 10 years from now, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's 2 years, whatever it is. And think of the emotions that you want to consistently feel day in and day out. That's where you start from, because as human beings, that's what drives you. Every single thing you do is based on emotions and feelings. So if you want to have more joy, you want to have feel more freedom, if you want to be more at peace, that's what you need to aim for. You have to give your brain that target. And then you have to work backwards and say, what kind of lifestyle will support that? And then if you're an entrepreneur or if you have a career, what kind of career or business will support that lifestyle? Most people have it all wrong. They go into the career, they go into the business, and then they realize that that business or that career is not helping them create the lifestyle or the emotions that they want. If you really want to live a happy life, work on emotions. That's the end goal. That's through basically evolution. Every single thing you do, again, I'm going to really hammer this home, is based on the emotions. So if you can control your emotions, if you can focus on having better quality emotions, you will have a better life, a more fulfilled life. But most importantly, here is the most important thing. And when I was at Stanford, they were doing a lot of studies on this. The quality of emotions that you have directly impact your decisions and the effectiveness of your actions. So if you have better quality emotions, you will make better decisions and you will be more effective in taking action and actually get to your goals faster and easier.
That makes so much sense. Thank you, Purdeep. How can people find you on the internet? I'm sure, but where?
Oh, so the easiest way is go to my website, themaleentrepreneur.com, and you can easily get a hold of me through there.
Okay, that's pretty much it, people. He has told you have better quality emotions. These emotions, the better quality emotions will directly impact your decision-making processes. So make sure you go to maleentrepreneur.com. Be sure you share this audio podcast recording with your coworkers, your friends, your spouses, male or female, however it works in your world, so that they can hear what Purdeep Sangha has to say that is extremely valid and extremely important. I want to wish everybody a great day and thank Purdeep Sangha for being here with us, and have a good weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.